why don't you just try trading in the top half all the time? Just stay out of the bottom half. After really refining these rules in the last couple of weeks, that's probably the most calmest I've felt. The weird thing about trading is you only have to really make really subtle, small changes, and they can have massive effects to your P&L. That's the beauty there. Is you're probably not that far away.
We're looking for trading opportunities in the market's best momentum companies. And we also look for a common factor that all these market leaders share before they become the strongest performers. That's what we call entering the Launchpad. Gary Glover has been through both lists and is here to explain the charts, the setups, and also similarities he looks for when trading these leaders. Now this week, we've also got some questions from the channel's top supporters, our members. Thank you very much, members. And we'll cover those today as well. So this video is published after market close on Friday, but members get the whole 30-30 list at the same time Gary does, which is after lunch on Thursdays. If you want to join as a member, just click on the link below and you can get the list at the same time. Now, we've got a charting question for Gary and 2 calculation questions that I'll cover. First, we'll say good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Chris.
I know it's been sort of a busy week. We've still got reporting season. There's some trends to analyze. There's some launchpads to look for. And there's also the model book that you're working on. So there's a lot that you've got on your plate. But the questions, so we've got a lot to cover today, and we do want to ask some questions about what you've learned or pulled out of not only this week, the opportunities that you see, but some reflection of how to sharpen your own trading approach. The questions that we got over from the members were about the 30-30 list Launchpad. So what is a Launchpad and where does it come from? Specifically, is it a moving average calculation? So Trader Lion do have something that's called a Launchpad, and it looks like that's the derivation of Darryl Guppy multiple moving average, or GMMA. We've got a lot of respect for Darryl Guppy, and he put a lot of research into that. We love that setup and that indicator, but that's not it. We initially had a different name for the Launchpad, where we Googled and looked for anything that was more descriptive and related to momentum trading, and there was nothing under it. So we took Launchpad. It's a derivative of momentum calculations. So when we've got quarterly momentum that we look at, and Gary will go through that top 30 list in a second, we also look at the changes within that. And then with some calculations, we pull out the Launchpad leaders. And that's the second of the 30-30 list. The other question is about filters. So we're looking, Gary has noted this in the past. It's a function of the market cycles. We sometimes end up with a lot of small caps, and kind of Gary will look at the list and say, well, there's not a lot in the list this week. It's when we end up with the rats and mice, that kind of thing, small micro caps, and getting a lot of multi-directional signals, not a lot of confluence in the segments. We do apply a market capitalization filter and a volume filter, and that helps us get rid of a lot of the noise that can come from where the signals within the market. So we reduce those. I'll put those down in the comments below, exactly what those filters are. So hopefully we've got that housekeeping out of the way, and that helps us understand. Gary will throw over to the top momentum charts. In these 30 momentum leaders for this week on the ASX, which one stood out to you?
Yes, I'm just on what you're talking about there, Chris. I'm guessing some of the viewers there might want to sort of know what sort of time frames you're sort of looking at there. So obviously your quarterly there, I'm guessing like the Trader Line there, you use a weighting of time frames as well. So you probably have a heavier skew on the time frame in question, and then maybe a shorter skew, which makes it a small weighting as well. So I'm guessing a filters will be something like that. Yeah.
Bang on. So the industry standard, what we see, most calculations for whether it's platforms or people who have added into the platforms where you can code your own, the most common one is loading it heavily towards 40% in your most shortest one. And if you've got 2, 3, or 4 other calculations, most of them have 3 others. So the short one, which is at 40% weighting, and then the 3 others, they're normally equally split. So heavily weighted 40% towards your most recent calculation, and then the next 3 split at 20%. That seems to be the industry standard for momentum calculation. And we look at that over the quarter, because in our studies we found for the ASX, most definitely 6 months, too long. 1 month, 2 months, it's too short. So 3 months, we end up at a quarter of a year, and that seems to be getting us the best filtration of the list. So good point, Gary. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, so let's get on to the quarterly here. So number one on the list, Chris, is LRV, Lovato Resources there. So he's had a pretty big move there. Pretty small, but I guess gone from maybe 12, 13 cents here up to 33 now. So maybe does sort of start to enter my filters. But it has had a pretty, there wasn't sort of too much in that earlier, but we now have had that explosive move, and we've now doubled in value on pretty chunky volume. So that's the first phase of our filter for these. If we go back and look at those, it's funny. I listened to David Ryan, went back to an old trader line, probably one of the first podcasts. Actually, it might have been the second podcast that they ever did, and then Minavini as well, the third podcast they ever did. So going back a long time, and it's funny, these are done many years ago, but those guys are saying, certain things you guys should be looking at, and studying model books, studying the biggest winners of all time. It's just, so important. And I can tell you, having put that model book together, having done the Mag 8 there recently, that really is clarifying what I'm looking for. And it's actually made, Chris and I were talking earlier, how it's actually made my playbook has narrowed as a result of all the analysis I've done now, and it's become more specific. So I'm looking for a narrower type of trade here. So obviously like Minavini only trades one setup, and so he's very narrow in what he's looking for. So I've sort of got 4 setups there, but 3 of those 4, I might only get 1 or 2 signals a month on that setup, but it's very, very narrow. So let's see that. And I know one of those setups will only come in a certain time of the market, and the other one will probably be more of a building aspect. So they're going to, sounds funny, but they're all probably going to happen at different times in the market, which is probably quite useful to have a system like that. So, but yeah, this one here, it's had an explosive move. It's pretty chunky volume there, Chris. So big volume there. So that's if we go back and look at all the big movers, that's how they start. They have a little, build a base, they explode over base, big volume, and then they have some sort of, consolidation pause here. So this goes on our list just because it's met our first filter of, for me personally, having like 100% move and having some pretty chunky, having some like a real volume move as well. That's how, if I go back and look at most of those stocks that I think I've covered 15 in the model book, and I think we did the Mag 8 as well. And then I think I've got a library of about 45, 50 VCPs there now. There's just the characteristics will sort of keep seeing the same sort of thing. So this is what you see at the start. It doesn't mean it's like a follow-through day. Plenty of them fail, but all market rallies start with a follow-through day. So we know all big moves start with signature move, and that's the signature move is to have that explosive move, big volume, and then now we're looking for a bit of a pause here. So I think we were talking about the LTP there recently, how that's had that explosive move, and then it's gone through a pause. So that's gone through June through to late August there. So 2 or 3 months. So that's the thing. These things can go through 2 or 3 month pauses here. So this LRV has had a great move. It's on value there, but people are going to jump in and try and buy this, Chris, because it's had a big move and it's exploded. But the thing is now it might go through a consolidation pattern. So maybe 1 month, maybe 2, maybe 5. So we don't know. But it goes on our radar regardless, just because it's had a pretty explosive move.
And it's possible it could be on that radar and churn out 2 or 3 months without actually giving you a signal.
Yeah.
Or just you keep wanting to look to see if there is a signal. So that's why you keep keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, look at this. Just look at, the second, number 2 on the list here is Appen there, which has had a horrible time here, but this did have an impulsive rally out of the low. So it did go from, my filter there. That's gone from 26 cents up to 116. So that's well and truly more than double in value. And that's pretty chunky volume as well. So you did see a bit of heavy selling. That would have been a bit negative, but then the whole thing starts to tighten up here. But this has ended up being March through to, August there. So, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months.
Mm.
So, I mean, like a lot of these have that sort of, can be in that 2 to 5 month sort of consolidation there. So, that's the thing here. So like that was a sort of, I remember when I was first letting Elliott wave, you're looking for the 5 waves and the 3-wave pullbacks, and then you see them so fast, and then you're jumping in, but without actually, if you learn some of the time rules, some of the corrective patterns can go through a lot of time there. I know sort of oftentimes just as they can be like 1 to 1.6 times the length of time on the move, whereas you're basically running up for a month, or say you're down to 3-4 days, you think, there's my ABC, it's already happened. So, but the reality is it could probably last a whole month. So sometimes, the market takes, needs a lot of time to actually sort of to congest here. So, and the beautiful aspect here is that the longer the base, the bigger the move generally as well. So the longer this kind of drags on, the more explosive it actually when it does come out here as well. So it is pretty interesting. There's sort of something that, because it was a really short pace here. Sometimes the moves can be short as well. Doesn't really have that follow through, but when they do have this long, supply punt sort of pacing there, and you can see there through all that period there, all your sort of volume just kept drying up here. So it's sort of, the whole thing sort of starts to sort of squaring off here. And then, we get two things there. We get a game change in news, which is one of my trade categories. We just sort of see that big news, which sort of changes the view on the stock. And then you get the big volume there, and then that's been a big catalyst for the stock here. We've had a pretty strong move here. It's a shame it sort of didn't pull up here and make a little handle for us, but it's just had a pretty explosive, pretty buoyant here. If you're not already long here, I wouldn't be chasing this here. But we know that some of these moves can go a lot further than you think. Still pretty robust, the volume. But yeah, me personally, I'll probably wait for this one to sort of cool and congest again. Go through some sort of consolidation, but it's just a good analysis there that this, these, when they first come out of the gates here, everyone thinks you've missed it. It's about 100%, 150% or 200% or something, so they have the pause, they have this congestion, and they get, they go again there. We saw that LTP, so this has been one of my better trades here, in the last sort of few weeks here. Even though it didn't sort of go to plan there, still been pretty impulsive, pretty aggressive move here. So you're just waiting for that, waiting for this pause, the congestion there. So all these names there, the ones that sort of come out of the gates here, they will have a bit of a pause and come back there. So just get a bit patient there. Thought Newix, which has had a pretty cracking run here, this is getting a bit vertical now, Chris. See how sharp oftentimes when you sort of see this build here, you'll see a sharp move up like this, and they get a bit vertical, and then what happens is that they probably go through a bit of a pause there, and again they get a bit vertical, and they go through a bit of pause. This has gotten pretty vertical again. So there's something they know they can keep pushing there, but this is what the great traders do. So the Minivinis and the Ryans, those guys there, that they're selling some into the strength there. So in that if they get the 3 to 5 day really aggressive pop, they're selling some into that strength, and then they'll sort of probably tighten up the rest there. So whether they're using a 10 or a 20 day, so it's a long way back here, the 10 and 20. But yeah, I know when they get, I know David Ryan, he likes to just take chunks off. Like he'll just take, obviously these guys trade pretty large, but they might take 10% off, another 10% off, another 10% off. So he'll just keep trimming into strength. He'll keep sort of, and he might, if you see something really vertical like this, he might take a bit more off. He'll still end up holding a parcel. So just in case it does keep going here, but you do need to be sort of, I think when they get a bit vertical like this, that's probably the danger as well. What you're hoping for is they'll just reset, ingest again, come back in again. So, so it's just interesting for looking at that. AQC, number 10 on the list there. Bit of a smaller name there. There was a little bit of a VCP back here, Chris.
Mm.
Get my mouse there with.
And a nice coil, and look at that coil of compression right at the end of it.
Yeah, and then I guess what you did sort of see is you did see some volume start to come in here, and then you didn't get the break on the volume as well. So even though it's a small name here, did give you a nice little tight sort of setup there as well. So, whether that's a little cup and handle, BCP, meets a lot of those sort of, criteria, but it has punched through there as well. Like you see, DXR, number 12 on there. And this is sort of a bit of a VCP as well, a bit small, Chris, but saw a bit of volume through here, pull back, congest, tighten up. Again, this is, they're talking about, May, June, July, August here. So now maybe just starts to come out here. There's some interesting volume there. Definitely sort of coming out of this with some reasonable volume there. So Australian Pacific coal. So, a few of these coal players are sort of have been up a little bit in the last couple of days there. And I saw Yancoal sort of held back paying out dividend because they're looking to buy a few assets there. So if you've been around the market long enough there, you'll know that most of the coal names seem to disappear over time. They often get bid for. So if they're any good and they've got a quality asset there, they haven't lasted on the market too long here. So not saying this is going to be one of those, but that volume's pretty handy. So even though it's small here, it does look pretty interesting. So it's not too bad there. AWJ, number 15 there. Thought this was actually just showing some pretty strong volume, Chris, all the way through here, really. So, we saw some VCPs initially here, and then it would explode out of here. Then, nice sideways consolidation, another break here. I mean, the one thing when I was looking through, like probably half of those in the model book for Australia, they're probably half of the stocks that I looked at there, like the strongest names over the last couple of years. A lot of them were just making 52-week highs. That was sort of, someone made sort of BCPs and cup and handles. But then if you just waited for the 52-week high and break, just bought those, you would get some pretty awesome entries on a lot of those stocks. They just looking for stocks that are actually making 52 weeks like that. Actually, that was sort of one of the things that when I'm having a look through there, thought, it's around Davis box, like obviously, but if you haven't read the Davis book, that's a pretty short book. It's an easy read there, but it does, it's a classic.
Great story.
Yeah. But it does typify the market. It was half the biggest moves. They all started with a break of the 52-week high. And a lot of those names were in downtrends for like a year or two. Because they're early names, that first couple of years they, start buoyantly because everyone gets excited about them, then they just fade. And sometimes they can fade for 1 or 2 years or go through a negative period. And then they build and then they go. And then once they start breaking through 52-week highs, then that's when you're coming on there. So, yeah, just interesting here. This is still pretty robust, though. I mean, look at that volume there was pretty tidy. Very little volume through here until we start getting down the bottom again. And then we've got chunky volume again here. So this thing's sort of building pretty nicely. This is one that I thought, I better put this on my radar there. Just because so far it's been pretty well, been pretty buoyant. Each of the rallies there so far hasn't sort of been very little selling in here. So, if you remember sort of Spartan, we saw Spartan had chunky volume, have a pause, no volume on the consolidation, chunky volume on the run, consolidate, very little volume on the consolidation, chunky volume. It just rinse, repeat. It just kept doing that. So, so that's interesting there. So this one's definitely worth sort of circling there because it's got the right sort of profile as well. HPG was sort of one that I mentioned previously. Did really like the look of this. I loved how this was tightening up here. For me personally, when there's only sort of 5,000 or 6,000 shares on the bid and offer, can't really get in and out any sort of size there. So this doesn't meet my category. But like the business, got some momentum there. I noticed they were doing a lot of advertising over Origin. Really tight consolidation. It did sort of come out of here. I just couldn't get in. Just for me, I just want to trade with a bit of size and scale here. But this looks pretty good. It's pretty top there. So it's it's followed that same pattern. I think if you remember the air task did to the song similar as well, had that big jump in the start of the year, tightened up here, and then it sort of did come out here. And then they go for a bit of a run to a new high there. So just be careful there with high pages. Obviously, if you're going to have a run here, it's not very liquid. So, have a bit of a burst. It might do an air task and fade again. Who knows? But just keep an eye on that. And just thought this was interesting here, just because pretty chunky, the volume recently as well. CP9 has been running for a bit. Starting to see the volume actually grow rather than decline here. A little of the volume on this wave here as well. So this is, definitely another one to sort of, underline now. I think this looks pretty good there to me. So there's a couple that have sort of got some really good characteristics in there. So I think that still looks pretty firm. It's had a good run here, so you're probably looking for a bit of a pause here now. SM1, I saw Stimulate sort of come off the low there. Still a pretty nasty downtrend, so yeah, you just wanted to watch there. Look, there was a bit of volume in here. First time there, maybe a bit of a first, breaking above a swing high is positive. So possible change of character, but pretty mean downtrend here. Not the best setup, really. We want to be sort of seeing a bit more than that. Me personally, I'm sort of trying to transition here lately to trading in the top half of the chart. Sort of that's one sort of mental note that I've made myself in the last few weeks. So just want to trade in the, try and do the majority of my trading in the top half of the chart there. That's sort of one of the rules that I've sort of really tried to enforce in. And weird since I've sort of done that, it's funny how my performance has improved. So I highly recommend doing the same. Keep away from the sort of the bottoms and the bottom dwellers there, because they're under the pump as well. So they get so many sort of sellers and buyers that are underwater. So any sort of bounce there, they're going to be met with some resistance as well. So they do it a lot tougher. Whereas stocks that are at new highs running through, no one's ever sold there before. So as I mentioned the other day, I was the LTP. I was happy to be buying that 2 or 3 times at the highest price that it's ever traded at. I think I bought it 3 times. Each time I bought, it was the highest price. Yeah. But what's happened is it's just kept going. So that's just the way the market works. So you've seen, Zip's been pretty strong here. So I know this one's had some overhead here, but this is starting to sort of clear bit of path here. The sector's definitely getting rid of legs. So, but yeah, this is still pretty robust there. Had a bit of an overlap in here. But you got to sort of follow this. You got to look at the stocks as well. Like the one thing I was sort of having looked at some of those, the model books, so the 15 sort of strongest for the last couple of years. Some of them did track the 20. Some of them, when they're getting really vertical, just track the 10 there. But the 50 was pretty dominant through most of them. Like they're sort of like, they had a few pauses or stuff in there, but when they sort of like a lot of them came back and touched the 50, or they might have been compression sometimes, but they did most of the work they did above the 50, so they can just sort of come back in there a little bit as well. So if you're a long term sort of trend and follow there, maybe the 50 is definitely a great one just to keep an eye on there. And then once it starts accelerating like this, like obviously you maybe use a 50 initially, and it starts to build here, then maybe you're looking at 20 and stuff there, maybe just holding up the 20. And then when it really gets, you can see it here now, they accelerated and stayed above the 10 here. That's when you should be moving this up here. Then that's sort of, you should be trailing that a bit tighter. So you sort of got to use the moving averages as the market sort of moves and stuff there as well. But this is still in a pretty strong position there. The last thing on the chart, Chris, is what we've seen is the stock just come back and just sat on top of the previous high. So it still leaves in a pretty strong position here. So nothing negative there. UNI is pretty interesting. I thought this one was again, we sort of had that old high here. You see there was sort of volumes a little sporadic in there, but there wasn't a lot of selling on that pullback there. I can see there we went back up, retested the high, and then we spent quite a few weeks just consolidating around that high. We pierced it a few times. In the old days, that going to a near high here and then coming off, that would have spooked me. I sort of, I was always looking for these false breaks on highs, probably looking.
False break at the top, so then make a false break at the bottom.
Yeah, looking too hard for little stuff there. But the strongest names, they break all the time. So they try and try and sort of, spook you out of the market, little false breaks and stuff there. But what you're sort of looking for is volume there, and that's not volume. There's too little day down here. And then, then what do we do here? We're up here, up and tightening up here. So the whole thing there is just tightened up here around the highs. This is what David Ryan looks for. He looks for basically the market to go back to the high, sit on there and just see some tight congestion and going there. So, I mean, you could argue this is a little cup and handle there, pretty bit tight there on the handle, but it doesn't show much weakness in there, So it stays like tight here, and then once we go back through here, I think this day here looks pretty good again. And get a 1 day sell here, try and spook you, and the whole thing just stays tight again and bang. So they're just an interesting sort of setup here. Just got to be careful around reporting season there. You will sort of see these bigger moves, like big candles there. And I sort of think, like you'll see them sort of like stocks of momentum here, they'll break out there. But you can get these big explosive moves, and they can be a bit ending patterns as well. You can really see those big, because that's probably, that's going to be probably 3 or 4 times the average true range in that one session there. So you can see those beyond. I don't know. I think it might have been Tuesday or Wednesday. I was just looking at some of the biggest movers there. There was probably half a dozen stocks, maybe 10, that are moving 3 or 4 times their average true range in a day. There was just so many big moves, and some of these sort of been, even sort of some of the middle, mid caps and small caps, and even a couple of big caps as well were sort of moving. So there's some big moves there. AGC I thought was pretty interesting, just because this has had that big move, had a bit of a pause there. It looked like it was setting up in here. I actually think I did buy this little breakout here, Chris. I thought this might get going here. It did get going here and then sort of fail. I got sort of stopped out on I think it might have been around here or something, for a bit of a small sort of tiny gain. But yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for, explosive moves. I know sometimes they can resume after only a month and a half, but it's more likely to sort of use more time up here. So this one goes back on our radar here because it's used up a bit of time here. Even though this has come back deep, you could probably prefer to sort of see this hold in the top half. You still sort of got to keep an eye on it because it's sort of, it's used up a bit of time here now. It's had a bit of a rally, not great volume in there so far, but maybe we'll build it. We're building here. This might be the case here where this could do a base here for 3 or 5 months and maybe go again, maybe 2 months from there. So we just wanted to keep an eye on there just because it really had that explosive move initially out of the range there. But just want me to sort of keep an eye on there. CCG, pretty messy there. Must have got the right stock there. Maybe not. FFM. Yeah, I thought there's something interesting there. This is sort of Firefly Metals there. It's been sort of building here. Just the whole thing sort of, this is a bit of a cup and handle there. It's a little deep to handle, but has sort of gone through the top here. And there was some okay volume as well through that. So it's a little small for me personally, sort of 9-10 cents. Actually, no, sorry, it's about 90 cents. That's okay. But yeah, so I thought.
Zoom out. That name's familiar back from start of COVID lockdowns. It was one of the top momentum companies for a long time. So if you pull out and have a look at the weekly, I guess that kind of fits with what you're talking about, right? Where they can be laid up.
Yeah. This is possibly used too many years up, but yeah, can come back again. But it's but yeah, this is just not a bad setup here. So he's had a pretty good move there. Not heaps of volume through there. Not nothing sort of had some volume down here. No great volume here, but yeah, just not a bad setup there, I guess. I mean, we were talking about sort of zip there previously there. You notice that we're seeing some of the sister companies like has had a nice little move there. I think even Tyro's had a nice little rally off the low as well. There's a couple others that were might have been SQ2 had been sort of firm here as well here. So just a few in that sector get a bit of strength there. But that was a quarterly there, Chris.
Okay, so the quarterly list, obviously you talked about the calculations that we do to find the leading momentum companies, and they're the ones that are leading the market from a momentum perspective. And we apply 25 million market cap filter and then $50,000 trading value at the time we run the calculations. But then looking at the weekly ones, so if that's a quarterly movement, we run that calculation every day. And then we look at the changes from week to week to see which ones have actually improved over time and run some other calculations. That gets us to the Launchpad. And this is something you've talked about a few times before, Gary. You've seen it light up. You've seen 3, 4, 5, 6 uranium names, gold names. Sometimes there's lithium. It's a certain thematic that's coming forward. And about a month, 2 months ago, there were a lot of property trusts. Is there anything that's coming out to you at the moment? Because sometimes there's a lot, sometimes it's just a ghost town. Is there anything popping out this week?
Yeah, look, the only thing in there, you've got a few gold and silver names in there. So I did see that. Probably the one, it might have been a new silver name in there.
While you're looking at that, I know we were talking off air that there was a difference in the breakdown. There was the larger, so the gold producers, one of the themes of frame 6, and the gold miners that are on there, ETF, GDX, they were ranked higher. So just an interesting observation there in that Launchpad list. But were there any in that list from a charting or technical perspective that sort of took your eye and you said, oh, hang on a second, these are adding to my list, or am I going to trade in here?
There's a few in there. I was sort of watching there. I did trade a couple in the list. But yeah, just, I mean, to be honest, Chris, I traded Charter Hall. And because I'm looking at a VCP, and it's sort of like, even though it's a bit loose, it did sort of set up quite nicely. It gave me a little bit of a B-wave break in there, which I traded. It did sort of see it get going there. I think it got 1 unit of profit for me, which means that I can move, usually move my stock up a little bit. So I did move it up and got stopped out this day here for pretty much sort of square, or might have been a tiny little. I actually didn't move it as aggressively as I normally do. I gave myself a tiny bit more room, but I ended up getting tagged. That was the day that Dexus actually came out. All the property trusts were trading really well, and Dexus came out with a pretty average result, and they all got a bit hit that day. But then it reported the following day to get going there. So, but to me, I sort of like, okay, still sort of like, this is a good setup. I've just probably rushed my stop, but that's my rules that's my rules, is to sort of, if I get 1 unit of profit, is to sort of try and edge it up. I don't try and edge it up as fast as I used to. I used to sort of be, as soon as I get 1 unit of profit, go straight to break even. But I found that I was getting stopped out a lot too often there, going adjusted there. But yeah, but there's plenty of other trades there for me that worked out pretty well here. So it's funny, I look at this and, I review this during the week, personally, just to sort of say, okay, what was I, the only thing for me was that because the environment has been a bit looser, like a lot of the VCPs have been wider than they normally are because of volatility that's been around the last few weeks. So a lot of the VCPs are a little looser than we normally sort of see. I know sort of, Kalamagi said, losers for losers and tightest for winners. So, but we're just in an environment there, we're seeing a bit more sort of width there. So, so either, to me, it's protecting the capital is number one for me. So if I get a move there, I'll just, because the environment's all nasty. And that was a bit of a day there where it could have spooked the market, and did spook the market. But so literally since then, probably trusts have all recovered. So, but I've traded a couple of names there, and they've done all right. So I can't complain about sort of spilt milk there. But it's just a good lesson there. Like for me, I look at it and think, okay, because the question is sort of, which I sort of saw during the week, and it might have been one of the traders, is that, if you're looking at your trading strategy and your process there, that trade came along again, would you trade it the same way 99 times out of 100? So firstly, would you take that trade again? So if it's tick, then you know you got your process correct, and and two, we just how you trade that, will you trade again? So that was the only thing for me, is like, was I too light here? So the only sort of learning for me was that if it's a little wider, in terms of the if it's a little looser in the VCP, then give yourself more room there. And look, I didn't trade it heavy just because I knew with reporting season there, I'm trading half of what I normally would trade as well. Just because I know, having gone through a few reporting seasons in my life, they can hurt if you get it wrong. So it's just again, capital preservation. So just a few lessons in there. One of the viewer questions was FHE, Frontier there. Look at this built quite nicely, a nice little cup and handle there previously. I think good volume there. Did have a nice little run there, nice little VCP in here, and then shot through there, but has sort of come off there, probably overbalanced there now, Chris. So that's a fair correction there. So there's probably not. If I look, if I drill out here too, what I see here is a false break as well. So it has gone to a new high and failed up there. So and this has come back. If this is going to be cup and handle, this shouldn't have come off that deep. We see it, all the strongest stocks with the handle, it's nice and tight. So we want to see that tight handle in there. So that's probably not. It's had a fair move back here now. So it's probably out of bounds for me. I don't want to see this consolidate and improve trading before I come and look at it. So, not for me personally. SM1 was on the list. That was number 2 on the list there. Again, we talked about that. Kind of goes on the radar there just because there was a bit of volume at the low there. Possible change in character, but very, very early here. So, not a favourite there. I think Y6 had a pretty big move here. So, this might have been a little undercut, Chris. I don't know. I prefer when they sort of, we're talking about undercutting, like the strongest names, oftentimes they'll undercut the low here. So, this probably got a little deeper there. Probably like to sort of see it, a little narrow, but don't know what the rules are there in terms of how percentage there. I'd probably like to sort of, to me, it's probably less about percentages and maybe more about how many days that it spends under there. So that here we've sort of had the 1, 2, 3. So basically by the 4th day we're back up there. So that's probably, I probably prefer to see them a bit less. Maybe only spend a couple of days down there and then just there. So, but that's an undercut there. And then we're looking at what I think it's what 1, 2, 3 there. So he might have been buying here. This is sort of Caruso's there basically buying the undercut on the 3rd day. So it's interesting.
On that one there for May. So in the early mid part of May, it's sort of kind of false break territory. It didn't do it just in a day, but it got to a new high and then hasn't been able to maintain it.
Yeah.
But is it more constructive that as it comes back down, it takes almost a month to come back down and make sort of a higher low?
Yeah.
But for that period, which is from March, where it sort of started to plateau through August, it's sort of like, I think you call that kind of a correction in time as opposed to more of a correction in price where it goes down. If that's...
I think it's a great...
Is that important? Is that important from the false break component, and then to see, well, it doesn't actually tumble away. It actually corrects in time from the false break. Is that more important? Like, how do you view that as opposed to a false break that comes up and quickly comes back down?
Yeah, because in the old days, I would have seen this go to a new high and fail here, and that would have been negative. But then the whole thing just holds here, just sideways, sideways, sideways. It's just what this trend is it's an overlapping trend. So like a strong trend will sort of build on top of each other, and then when it's really strong, they'll between the last high, it'll rally and go to a new high. When it pull back, there'll be spacing between the previous high and the current low. And then you get spacing in there as well, and that's when your trend is really strong. But what you do is you get a pause, you just get an overlapping trend here. So this is what sort of McLaren would call corrective. So you're just going through a breather here. This is a corrective sideways trend here. So one or two things is going to happen. It'll either break down, come back up there, hit the previous swing high, then roll off. That might have been that day. They might have had you a little nervous, but then the next day it's gone back up again. And then oftentimes they break up, sit on top of the previous high and then go. But the fact that this did undercut that, it's just a great signal there. I keep looking at this now. And that's probably, having seen this one, I'll probably add this to my library there, just because that sort of shows. That's probably a little bit, I think, compared to car sales and NextDC and RMS there, there's probably spent an extra day or two at the low, but didn't go that deep really. That's only maybe, maybe 2 or 3% lower or something there, but the fact that it's gapped up here back in the range there, I think closing back above it there. So maybe that's, closed above it this day, the second day here, then you're breaking that. So not a bad signal there. It's funny how they're strong names. They just come back and undercut all the time here. So it's a great, that's one of the, I've sort of added that rule in there now because I do look at the false breaks here, but now I've revamped my rules to just look at false breaks in the top half. Because gone back and reviewed all my sort of trades, particularly on my false breaks there. Apart from one I've missed there, I could have got set on another manner. All the best trades were in the top half of the charts, all the best false breaks there. I know Gil Morales and some of the great traders talk about this as well. So it's a pretty good setup here. It's actually one to have a look at there. The beautiful aspect I've seen there, Chris, is that it's around that sort of Minervini phrase about being in the market the least amount of time possible. Because most of them are undercut, and then they go to new highs in quick time there. So we're seeing this so fast there. You saw, so that's literally undercut there. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days you're at a new high. I think car sales there, you undercut here. And then you're, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days you're at a new high. So you're in the market,
Very short amount of time. You're either, I think you said this before air.
Yeah.
You said this before air, which I thought was a great quote, which was, what is it? You're wrong quickly or you're up big fast.
Yeah. So it's just, you're in the market for only a very short period of time. And having looked at it, that one over it, it's a very explosive move. So whereas false breaks coming off the low can take months to build, there can be a basing pattern there. And it's like that sort of, it's like seeing that explosive move and then go sideways for 2 or 3 months. So we're sitting through that 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Our capital's chewing up, time. It's not doing anything. So we want to be basically, coming out, breaking out of a VCP, having a fast move here. So staying in the top half, sticks with the strong stocks. And then the VCPs, once they're sort of starting to break through, they're coming out there. So, and again, you just want to be in those stronger names there. Sort of, it's taken me a little while to get my head around this, but it's sort of like I've shifted my, I've had my playbook, Chris, but I've narrowed it down here in the last few weeks so that I've sort of got the same sort of setups, but I've taken out all the least profitable ones, which happen to be in the bottom half of the chart, and then all the most profitable ones are in the top half of the chart. Only one setup for me, 0, 1, 2, 3 pattern, is the only one that's probably in the bottom half. But that's actually, by the time it actually gets to the 0, 1, 2, 3, it's getting pretty close to the midpoint, and then it actually explodes pretty quickly into the above the midpoint. So, a lot to be said. Lots we said.
Been reviewing those trades and the lot you said in trading above that half. So when you're talking about the half, I presume you're talking about you're looking at a daily chart over a year and is it in the bottom half or the top half? That's a very quick eyeball to go, is my trade in the right part of the chart?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it was weird. I was literally walking around there a couple of weeks ago. I think it might have been a Friday there, just sort of just thinking about the week, and then again I get drawn into sort of trading something on the bottom half. I just sort of thought, why don't you just try trading in the top half all the time? just stay out of the bottom half. Just something simple like that. Um, so the last couple of weeks, I've stayed out of the bottom half the whole time, stayed in the top half. Only trading the tightest sort of reins that I put on myself there, and it's been a nice little period actually. Just sort of get my head in the right direction, and then it's just keeping you out of your sort of your faults as well there. But FBRs is one that's had a pretty explosive move there. Has had a decent pullback here now, probably a little deeper than you'd like to see, Chris. You'd like to see, I mean, they're going to always go through a bit of a pause there, but this has been met with a bit of selling. So a bit of volume through there, and a bit of volume through there as well. So not ideal. So this is probably still want to keep an eye on there. I think it's an interesting company there, but there was met with a bit of selling here this front. So to me, it's probably can probably still go again, but I think this might need to use up a bit more time first. And it does sort of highlight that when you do have that overhead, a lot of that overhead stock, when you have a big rally there, sometimes it can be met with some pretty aggressive selling. So that's the negative of sort of buying these sort of old leaders, is they've got there's plenty of losers there who are keen to sell into any rallies. Points bit I thought was interesting there, just sort of the whole thing a little tighten up. There's a bit of a couple of handle there, probably too deep behind. Did see a couple of analysts actually talking about this a couple of days before this pop there, giving it a wrap. So I can't remember what it was there, but I thought, good on you. It's sort of been, obviously, you thought it was going to report pretty well, and it did. So, but it's not one for me personally, but has had a bit of a pop there. FXG, bit of a VCP there, I thought, on this one. Yeah, Chris, sort of, I mean, it's had a pretty strong rally. It's probably come back a little deep there, but again, we've probably got a little undercut there. Has recovered here. And when we're sort of gone back up here, we're probably going above this B wave here now as well. So volume's a little timid in there, but did have a little nice little, bit of a come off the lows there, a little pulse break there, a little bit of a tight consolidation there. The volume's not bad here. So, this has been relatively strong here, this trend. Bit of a pause there, and it might be resuming again. So not the worst looking chart there. I thought that was okay. So that's Southern Cross Gold there. And we know that a lot of those gold stocks are performing pretty well. Obviously, the gold price is performing pretty well as well. RWC I thought was pretty interesting, Reliance World. This is one that I sort of did notice there previously. Had a nice impulsive bounce there. Some pretty good volume on this bounce. And we've pulled back a little deep. But now we've gone back to retest the high here. I'm hoping what this might do is pull back and tighten up in here. Maybe we get a bit of a VCP maybe occurring in here. There was a bit, some pretty strong volume in here so far. So some of the ones that are doing this are just sort of going through again. So maybe we might consolidate back in here, but we'll see that. But it definitely goes on the radar. SFR, Sandfire Resources. Keeping an eye on this one there, just because, again, it's had a pretty, been a leader, strong pullback, has sort of come back, maybe ABC here, maybe it can build again. No, so far we got no swing high here, broken here. So what we want to see is this whole thing tighten up here. So we'd like to see this pull back here, VCP, and then maybe come out of there. So to me, this probably one I'm keeping an eye on there. Yes, it is in that copper space, but you want to see this whole thing tighten up here. It has showed relative strength, so has been a bit of a leader. So that's is in the top half of the chart here. So, but yeah, probably just want to see this thing tighten up here. But goes on the watch list just to keep an eye on there. I did see this LYC. This is sort of one that I did flag on the weekend. Again, this is sort of typical of the market here. It's got the VCP in here, but see how loose the VCP is. Like it's so yeah. So that's the market we're in. So I'm seeing it peak to these VCPs, but it's so you could have bought this. It did sort of tighten up a little bit in here, started to come through. So could have bought it on the break here, but it's a pretty loose. That's the problem with that loose like this. It can sort of get stopped out there. So if you leave yourself too wide, you you can get sort of, your losses can sort of grow as well. So, but yeah, I did think this looked all right there, because I think I thought the weekly setup was pretty constructive as well. So that's been pretty impulsive. This has been very sideways, very corrective oriented as well. So that leaves it in a pretty strong position longer term. Because really that sort of stayed in the top half of the chart here. So really this sort of stock is showing strength there, considering most of the sector is pretty negative. So it seems some big deep corrections in a lot of this, a lot of lithium, a lot of the rare earths. So they've all had pretty deep corrections. So Linus has actually held it pretty well. So in terms of that whole sector there, definitely showing relative strength versus sector there, tightened up here and then come out here. So yeah, it's definitely one of the, definitely keep an eye on this here. I thought it looked sort of constructive for me. I was just impressed with the whole, even though it was a bit loose, I thought definitely showing strength there. There was another one, there was a little one here too. This ARR is another little rare earth play, and it's interesting there because it sort of had that big burst, and even though it had a probably deeper correction than you like, it has since then tightened up. So we're now, we're past February here, so we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of almost 7 months there. So this is one to keep an eye on there, just a little small, but again, in a sector which has been, I think, Linus and ARR are probably two stronger names in that sector. You want us to see a bit more strength in that sector first, but definitely one to sort of keep an eye on moving forward. MGH was one that has showed a bit of strength, has been a leader in the past there, gone through a bit of a sideways consolidation there, a bit overlap, a bit messy there. I think a couple of viewers there, but I did notice sort of we're trading this there, just sort of a little, because it had been a leader there, did sort of tighten up there, probably broke a little bit of a B wave in there. You could sort of say this is a small VCP in there. But doesn't look too bad. I think if you sort of zoom out there, again, it's had that pretty strong move there, and then gone sideways there. So it still leaves it in a pretty strong position there. It's a beauty of looking. Sometimes it's worth looking at different time frames just to sort of see where it does sit on a longer time frame. WIA, this is another sort of gold name, Chris there. Thought this was just interesting because it had some, it's had some pretty decent volume on the way up here. It's just some, chunky volume. Did pull back here, pretty light volume here as well. And then what's happened here recently? The volume sort of picked up again. So too small for me, but this is not a bad looking chart yet to me. It's got above the little B wave breakout here as well. For a stock which had been pretty strong, the sector's pretty firm. Broken above here, some good volume there. It's not bad there. It just doesn't meet my price sort of filters there, but I think that looks okay. SRG, again, this has been pretty strong here. I mean, I guess just we look all the way through here. We're just looking at 52-week highs all the way through. Just keep had a few pullbacks there, but it just keeps going to new highs there. So again, we saw some pretty good volume there again, but I thought this looked okay there. But the long-term picture there just keeps, this is a stock that sort of hasn't had too many, they're all been pretty corrective sort of declines there so far. So, if you're waiting for just a weekly consolidation and then buy, maybe on a breakout there, you might get stopped out here, but I think a lot of these have had breathers there and then come through and then started to go again. So, not the worst looking stock there. Looks, pretty firm chart there still. I think I mentioned ADC. I think that was it, Chris. That was it. There was it looked a little choppy out there, but still plenty of signals there. Probably just the environment's a little looser, just because we've seen a bit more volatility there. So, I think with that extra volatility, probably got to trade smaller, or be quick on your stops and stuff as well. So it's each to their own. Then you sort of you got to sort of follow your own path there. I like to sort of get myself up to the thing about the chart of always much is a bit annoying not to clean up there. Nothing lost either. So so that I don't really look at it as it's like I've de-risked the whole situation there, and I did. It was funny actually that this morning I was listening to Minabini, And yeah, the comment that he sort of said, which sort of stuck, which sort of hit me was always improve your worst case scenario. So you should, as a trader there, you should be, so it's almost like a day. Today, it's okay. The US market was sort of down last night, first down day in about 8 or 9 days, so US market has been going up every day. So when you have a negative day, you get a negative day maybe in front of you, you probably get a look, just go through your stocks. For me personally, I played stops there, so I went reviewed all my stops this morning. So I just make sure they're all in the right place. I haven't got any too far away. If the market does turn down here, we've got Jackson Hole tonight as well. So that we've seen some big moves in the market, sort of good and bad after those Jackson Hole meetings. So we could see more volatility here. So just make sure you've all your stops are in the right place, and if you've had a pretty decent move here, we've had some pretty good gains here in the last few weeks there. So we don't want to go and give all that away. Because it means the market pulls back here. So I just like to, it's all about preserving the capital, as I say.
Definitely preserving the capital. But you mentioned earlier the BCPs and being wild and loose and Charter Hall. We did get we're sending out a list of BCPs to members on the weekend and got a bit of backwards and forwards with other people adding to the list. And Charter Hall was a third one on the list that went out. So we know that you're reviewing the markets, you're reviewing your strategy, particularly looking at the BCPs, how they're wider and in this current market trading differently. But something that you mentioned earlier was that you've changed your 0, 1, 2, 3 pattern. And what I found quite funny was that I was looking at you and you looked up above. So clearly you've got that accumulation cylinder somewhere on your wall. So how was it that you paired up the reflections and reviewing your trades in the 0, 1, 2, 3 and pairing that up with that accumulation cylinder that I think you said had been there for a few years? How did you join the two together to then refine your trading even more?
I just sort of found when I was reviewing my trades and I was going back at looking at the 0 to 3 patterns, the best ones were the again the overlapping sort of corrective sort of trends, and then and also the accumulation cylinder would seem to be those are the ones that were coming out of the gates, so really strong there. So I've had sort of one failure there, but I've had 3 cracking trades that coming out of those accumulation cylinders over a long period of time. So you don't get heaps of them again, but just probably narrowing the the amount of trades you get, but the quality is a bit higher there. Whereas you can it's like you can look like the BCPs and stuff there as well, and like a lot of these sort of technical patterns which I was looking at, they can be quite broad in nature. So by making it a bit more specific there, so that's the one thing I've done is now reviewed all my BCPs, I've reviewed all my 0, 1, 2, 3s, my false breaks, and as a result of reviewing them, I can see which ones will work the best, which ones aren't. And that's kind of caused me to sort of refine my trading even further. So I sort of almost I have the same rule book, but now I've sort of specified it a little bit tighter. So so I still got the same trades in my playbook, but they're a lot more specific now. So they really have to sort of meet sort of stricter criteria. So what I'm hoping to do there is take out, after reviewing there, taking out the ones that fail the most, and also the ones that have been the most dominant as well. So the ones that really have exploded. So sounds weird. It's that Winnie being in the market the short, the least amount of time for the biggest gains there. So I've looked at what where have been the most explosive moves, and so that accumulation cylinder, I've seen some explosive moves come out of that. The undercut, the strongest names, seen explosive moves come out of that short period of time. Really, the BCPs when they're trading above the 50, leading names, leading themes, a bit more symmetrical in nature. They're the ones that are coming out flat as well. There's still sort of some of the looser ones still sort of work out all right. I think ACL was sort of one that's broken out a bit of a loose formation there, a bit of an ascending triangle as well, but that's not too bad there. But Helios was another one that sort of had that move up there, and the whole thing just sort of tightened up in here. big sort of square range there. So that's sort of broken out here as well. There's been a few, some nice sort of breakouts there. But yeah, just have to, just that's the beauty of just going back and reviewing your trading and stuff there. But yeah, for me, all I know is that I would say 90% of my losers are from trading in the bottom half, and in probably once every fortnight, probably breaking one of my rules and trading sort of something down the bottom half. Been usually a pretty strong leading nail all the time there. Just think it's good quality coming a bit sold there. Just got to take that out. Just got to recognise what you're doing there. Yeah. So we got to sort of set rules in there to sort of stop there. If you're over trading too much, which in the past I have done, then set some rules to sort of make it harder for you to trade. So create a process that stops you from trading too much. If that makes sense. And if you're too slow moving your stops, then create a process to improve that. If you're taking your profits too early, create a process to improve that. So whatever your weakness is in your trading, it'll be shown in your results. It'll be shown when you review, and you're going to tweak that. So that's the thing about So I'm 53, but we can all get better. It doesn't matter how long I've been training, 20 years. I still can get better and better and better. It's strange, and now sort of after really refining these rules in the last couple of weeks, it's probably the most calmest I've felt about my rules and process. And I still I heard Benny sort of saying this is not entity when he was talking about entering the US investing championship. It was up 227%. He was still about 9 months away through the year. He goes, I just knew that I wouldn't make a fool of myself. I trust my process. I know what I'm doing. I might win the competition, but I knew I'd get a good result. Because he's got his process down pat. So if you can get to that stage there where you've got a good process, nice and tight, you're going to get some good trades there. Yeah, you're going to get stopped out. Some things are going to whip back and hit you out. So that's part of trading there. But if you build something really robust and you're really confident with it and really trust it, then there's a calmness in that. And so that's what you got to get to, I think. So I actually feel like I'm 99% of the way there, Chris. I'm really confident about the next 12 months. I feel like I'm gonna hit it out of the park here. But honestly, really, with the process I've got here, I'm just really confident that this is going to go pretty well.
Well, that's a great position to be in, and no doubt it's come from that consistent reviewing, refinement, reflection of your trading. And it's that point where you're writing the model book, and we'll break that in. We'll start recording and sharing some of that in the near future. But a lot of this reflection, obviously, that has come from you looking at best leaders. We'll put on screen there where you looked at the Mag 8 and the ASX. If anyone wants to look at that sort of reflection that Gary's done, click that on screen and say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think sometimes that sort of comes going through a little bit of a rough period too. Like if it's all sort of smooth sailing, you're not really progressing. So you're going to go through, you have a couple of good years, and then you might have a little tough period there or a tough quarter. But those couple of times there, they're going to make you stronger. You're going to make it, sort of tighter, and the better lessons are learnt there, and then it calls you to do more work. So I've honestly done more work in the last year than I've probably done in the last 10 years, sort of with the process and the strategy and refining it, and just so that's the do the work there. Don't be discouraged if you've gone through a bit of a negative period. Sort of go on and do a review. Look at what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and then just sort of try and tidy up. The weird thing about trading is you only have to really make really subtle, small changes, and they can have massive effects to your P&L. That's the beauty there. Is you're probably not that far away. If you're not sort of doing so well, and you've been working hard at it, it's probably just just need a probably tiny little subtle change, a little shift, just a one or two little improvements can have a really big, profound effect. So keep persevering.
That's great advice. We'll take that into the weekend. So thank you very much.